The summer is over, the students are back, and the 2015 football season is finally here.
The CCS staff is going to take an inside look at the 2015 Gamecock football team, and we're going to start off talking about quarterbacks. Now, there's 4 potential candidates that could start at quarterback this season. You got Connor Mitch, Michael Scarnecchia, Perry Orth, and Lorenzo Nunez.
Coach Spurrier has announced Connor Mitch would start in this first season game. How do you think Connor Mitch will do?
I think Connor Mitch is a good candidate to be the starting quarterback. He's been on the team for the last 3 years, or this will be his 3rd season. He's a redshirt sophomore. In high school, was a highly recruited quarterback, number 13 in the nation. I know he set a record in the state of North Carolina for most touchdowns in a game. So he's more of a pocket-style kind of quarterback, so you won't see him running a whole lot, but I think he'll be similar to a Dylan Thompson type rather than a Connor Shaw.
With the young team, tell me about the newest freshman quarterback.
Lorenzo Nunez is obviously the newest addition to this Gamecock football team at the quarterback position. Highly recruited out of the state of Georgia. Who's a 3-4 star rating on most recruiting websites. Definitely a dual threat style kind of quarterback. I watched some film from him in high school, and he's quite impressive. He can definitely move around and run the ball if it comes to the fact of he's got nobody to pass it to. So I think that would be more appropriate for a Steve Spurrier kind of offense. He's very similar to Connor Shaw, and obviously Connor Shaw performed very well in Steve Spurrier's offense. So I think Lorenzo Nunez has potential to possibly be a starting quarterback in the next couple of years, and probably one of the best that we've had in the probably past 50 years.
So you think there's a chance we'll see multiple quarterbacks this season?
I think we'll see multiple quarterbacks play in the same game. I think that Spurrier's going to switch it up a little bit, kind of keep it kind of unbalanced, so most teams don't know who's going to be playing at the quarterback position. I know that he's talked about Farrah Cooper playing at the Wildcat position, throwing the ball. We saw him play a little bit of Wildcat last year during the Clemson game, and he could throw the ball pretty well, so I think he would be definitely a good player to be in the backfield. And they also talked about Lorenzo Nunez playing Wildcat as well, so if you got Lorenzo Nunez, Brandon Wilds, and Farrah Cooper in the backfield, I think that's going to cause a little bit of trouble. And speaking of the backfield, let's toss it to Brett and Edwin, who are going to talk about running backs and receivers.
Hi everyone, Brett Williams, Edwin Santa Maria here with you from the new Springs Brooks Plaza outside Williams-Brice Stadium. A new look, but the same passion here for Gamecock football, ready to begin another great season here in 2015. And we're here to talk about backs and receivers. Edwin, with the receiving core this year, the big question is who's going to step up and help All-SEC first teamer Farrah Cooper?
The coaches are real high on redshirt freshman Debo Samuel out of Inman, South Carolina. Shamir Jeffrey, he's also one of the players that is expected to have a breakout season his last year here, and he's really wanting to help the team out.
Yeah, Shamir Jeffrey obviously brings in the family connection with Alshon Jeffrey, a huge Gamecock star now with the Chicago Bears. We'll see what they can bring there, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Somebody really does need to step up, because with the quarterback situation right now for the Gamecocks, Connor Mitch out there, but none of the quarterbacks have a lot of experience, so he's going to probably be relying on Farrah quite heavily. Need somebody else to carry that load.
Yeah. Also, I feel like the running backs will also need to help out with Connor Mitch as well. With Brandon Wilds coming back for his last season, and David Williams and Sean Carson, we have a real good running back core back there.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to replace that 1,000-yard performance last year by Mike Davis, but Brandon Wilds, David Williams certainly are more experienced than probably the depth of the receivers might suggest, so that'll help them out a little bit. I think Wilds can carry the good brunt of the team if the offensive line backs him up. Got a couple guys that dealt with injury. Mike Matulis probably back in there on the left side of the offensive line this season. We'll see if that works out. Tight end's also an interesting area to talk about. Clayton Stadnick, one of the more interesting player stories on this team, as he's come over from formerly being on the offensive line, lost a lot of weight, now somewhere between a fullback and tight end hybrid. He could bring some leadership to a much needed position.
Yeah, also Jarrell Adams, they're expecting to have a big year from him, and I also expect him to have a big year. Maybe even be a possible All-American candidate.
Could very well be. The tight ends, you also see some freshmen out there. Kyle Markway, who I got to know a little bit during the spring season, might bring some nastiness from his high school alma mater, St. John Vianney, just outside St. Louis. Maybe he'll get some time out there as well. So it should be an interesting season once again to see the weapons that Connor Mitch and company, and may very well see Lorenzo Nunez and some others get some playing time out there. We'll see what they're able to do with the offensive weapons the Gamecocks can have. Opening night, North Carolina coming up Thursday night. For Edwin Santa Maria, I'm Brett Williams. Next segment coming up next.
What's up, Gamecocks? I'm Chandler Mack, and I am here at the Horseshoe to talk about the 2015 South Carolina Gamecock football team, primarily about the defense. This was a defense that was ranked 92nd in the country last season by giving up a whopping 432 yards a game. The new look 2015 Gamecocks will be implementing co-defensive coordinator John Hoke's system into the team. Hoke will be working with former defensive coordinator Lorenzo Ward in making sure that the Gamecocks have a better 2015 defense than they did in 2014. The Gamecocks' primary problem last season was the fact that they couldn't really apply pressure on the quarterback. They only had 14 sacks last season, and they will look to junior transfers Marquavius Lewis and Dante Sawyer to help lead and guide that defensive line. The Gamecocks will also be returning 8 starters to the team from last season, including TJ Gurley, who had 80 tackles, 4 pass deflections, and an interception last season. Let's hope that the changes John Hoke and Lorenzo Ward has made to the defense will help ensure a better 2015 season for the Gamecocks. For Cal C Sports, I'm Chandler Mack.
All right, so I'm John Wagner. I'm here with Garrett Lash, and we're talking about maybe the unsung heroes of the football team, the offensive and defensive line, the guys that tend to make things happen, but don't necessarily get the credit. So we'll go ahead and start with the offensive line, and we have sort of a projected line. And starting on the left tackle, it's going to be Mason Zandy, and then at guard, Cody Waltrip, and then at center we'll have Alan Knott, and then right guard, Will Sport, and right tackle, Brandon Shell. And Garrett, what do you think about those guys?
Well, I think especially on the left side of the offensive line, there's going to be some inexperience. Left tackle Mason Zandy replaces Corey Robinson, and left guard Cody Waldrop replaces second-team All-American A.J. Cann, both of who were starting seniors last year. Cody Waldrop actually moved from the center position. He's going to be replaced by Alan Knott, who has been a good blocker, but has been known to have some inconsistencies snapping. At right guard, we have Will Sport. It's his job to lose this year. He's expected to be a solid right guard this year. And then at right tackle, we have returning starter Brandon Shell, who is a senior and started every game last year. Hopefully he can continue to anchor the offensive line for an inexperienced Connor Mitch this year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of maybe inexperience across the line, but we're going to move on the other side of the ball now to defense. And starting over there at defensive end, we got Gerald Dixon Sr., and then going into guard, we have Gerald Dixon Jr., and then on the other side, Philip Dukes, as well as Marquavius Lewis at the other end. And you also might see some action from Dante Stallworth and Dexter Weidman. But as for the starters, what do you got on those guys?
Well, both the Dixons were our returning starters from last year. Gerald Dixon, the defensive end, he's a junior, and he was 5th in tackles on the team last year. Gerald Dixon Jr. is going to be a senior this year. Hopefully they can have some chemistry on the defensive line to put some pressure on offenses. Defensive tackle, Philip Dukes. He's a senior as well. Hopefully he's gotten enough reps in practice to continue to solidify his spot there. And if you want to get excited about someone, it should be Marquavius Lewis, the junior transfer from Hutchinson Community College, where he recorded 63 tackles each of the last 2 years. And he was rated the 2nd best defensive end junior college transfer by ESPN this year. He's 6'3", 264 pounds, and hopefully he can be an electrifying part of the defensive line.
So there you have it. And some big ideas that we're looking at with both lines. There's a definite lack of experience in the offensive line, which can be concerning because that's really going to define Connor Mitch's confidence and comfortability early on in the offense. And these positions could change. There's a few guys that can play a lot of different positions. So maybe even if it is the same 5, you might see them in a different position than we had predicted. And the main thing that they really need to do is they have to open holes on both sides. If we can get linebackers and the secondary in the backfield to disrupt the opponent's defense, that's going to be huge, making stops, and it allows the offense to be more comfortable and have less pressure on them, worrying about trying to score and keep up with the opponent. But as for the offense, it's important to have a strong offensive line because it creates options in the offense. And the running game is going to be huge early on to try to set the stage for Connor Mitch to be able to reach out and throw the ball and and make decisions that he wouldn't maybe wouldn't otherwise be able to do because they're stuck against a wall. It's third down. You got to throw the ball and you have no other options. But you've already tried it 3 or 4 times, so the secondary of the other team knows what you're looking for. So with that, I think that's about everything we have to say about the big uglies. So now we're going to send it over to Kristen and Nick, and they're going to wrap things up talking about the schedule.
Thanks, guys. Let's take a look at the 2015 football season. September 3rd, the Gamecocks head to Charlotte, North Carolina to take on the UNC Tar Heels. How do you think that's going to fare out for the Gamecocks?
I think South Carolina's got a pretty good chance of winning this game. A lot of unsureness around the quarterback position, and also defense. I mean, the defense looks like it's going to improve, but of course last year they didn't play well at all, so I don't know how much improvement there's going to be from last season to this season. I think they'll be slightly better, but of course Spurrier did say that he thinks that South Carolina is going to have the most improved SEC defense at the end of the season. So we'll see how that goes, but I think it's interesting knowing that North Carolina hired Gene Chizik as the defensive coordinator, and this is the first time he's came back since being the national championship winner at Auburn, being the head coach there. So it should be quite interesting to see how that game goes, but I think ultimately South Carolina will win the game, probably by around 10-14 points.
The Gamecocks then come back here to Williams-Brice Stadium to play Kentucky. How do you think that'll fare out for them?
Well, I think South Carolina's going to play with a chip on their shoulder because, last season they did drop a game to Kentucky at Kentucky, and they lost. I think they were up by, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and they just lost their composure and lost the game. So I think they're going to come back here and make sure that they seal the deal and win this game. And I think South Carolina will start off the season 2-0.
The Gamecocks then head to Georgia for their first SEC road game in Athens. How do you think that'll fare out for them?
Well, it's obviously going to be a tough game. Sanford Stadium's definitely a hard place to play at. And, Georgia still has running back Nick Chubbs, who's going to cause havoc all over the field running the football. I just quite honestly don't see South Carolina win this game. I don't think the D-line may not be developed enough at that point in the season to be able to stop the running game or even the passing game, because South Carolina was one of the worst in pass defense this past year. So we'll see how the game fares out, but I don't think they're going to win this game. I think Georgia's going to win pretty comfortably.
We then head back home here to Williams-Brice Stadium to play UCF. How do you think that'll work out?
This game will be interesting. They played a couple of years ago back when Connor Shaw and Dylan Thompson were both on the same roster. I remember that Dylan Thompson did play that game because Connor Shaw got injured. But it was a pretty close game, and this is a different UCF team at the time because when they had Blake Bortles. But, George O'Leary's obviously a pretty good coach, and obviously with Steve Spurrier, I think it's a pretty good coaching matchup. And I think South Carolina will overall get the advantage in this game just because it's at Williams-Brice Stadium.
The Gamecocks then head out to Missouri for their second SEC road game. Do you think they'll take the victory there?
I think there's a possibility. It's going to be an interesting game because South Carolina, lost to them last year when they had a pretty sizable lead. And I think, last time when they played there in Columbia, Missouri, South Carolina, escaped with the win in overtime. And I think that was a pivotal point in the season during 2013. Missouri has won the SEC East both years they have been in the SEC, so they have a chance to repeat. I wouldn't count them out by any chance, but Matty Malk is still the quarterback at Missouri, and I think that's going to help them out with the experience in the backfield. But I think Missouri's going to overall win this game by a close margin.
We then head back here to Williams-Brice Stadium where the Gamecocks take on LSU. How do you think that'll work out?
It's going to be a big game. LSU is obviously one of the best teams in the SEC West. They still have some questions with the quarterback position, but I think LSU will definitely be ready to play in this kind of environment. I mean, they're used to playing at Baton Rouge, and everybody knows Baton Rouge is one of the toughest places to play in the whole country. South Carolina, I think this might be their upset victory of the year. I mean, you can call me crazy if you want to, but we saw how last year when they played Georgia, and that was the third game of the season. Nobody really gave South Carolina a chance to win that game, but look what happened. South Carolina came out on top, and I think this is going to be their upset win of the season.
The Gamecocks then take on Vanderbilt. Coach Spurrier wasn't too happy with their performance last year.
That's for sure, Kristen. Spurrier was definitely not happy with the margin of victory they won. Just it was a very sloppy game, but I think this time Vanderbilt's not really going to have much to work with here at Williams-Brice Stadium. Last year they did play at Vanderbilt, so I guess they had a little bit of an edge, not much of an edge to win, but the home crowd definitely does help. But I know Vanderbilt's coach is already on the hot seat, so I don't really see much problem in this game. South Carolina wins by 3 touchdowns.
The Gamecocks then head to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. How do you think that'll fare out for them?
I don't think South Carolina has much chance of winning this game. Texas A&M does have quarterback Kyle Allen in the backfield. I think he'll have the most advantage in this game with experience, and it's probably going to hurt the South Carolina secondary. And also, just playing at Kyle Field is going to be intimidating in itself. They just did a bunch of stadium renovations, and I know it's going to be over 100,000 in capacity. So it's just definitely going to be an intimidating place to play at. And I don't think South Carolina's just going to win this game. I think they'll keep it a little bit competitive, but they're just not going to come over the top.
The Gamecocks then head to Tennessee to take on the Volunteers. Do you think they'll take the victory there?
Now, here's the thing. I know Tennessee's supposed to be a really good team this year. Butch Jones is starting his 3rd season with the Volunteers, and there's a lot of excitement around Neyland Stadium. But I think that South Carolina will not get a SEC road victory this season. They will probably overall lose this game. I think they might keep it competitive a little bit, but overall, playing at Neyland Stadium is hard enough on its own. I don't think South Carolina's going to win this game.
The Gamecocks then head back here to Williams-Brice Stadium to take on Coach Spurrier's former team, the Florida Gators. How do you think that'll fare out?
It'll be a close game. Jim McElwain is starting his 1st season with the Florida Gators, and it's interesting, the last 2 coaches at Florida, Coach Spurrier has ended their career with the last SEC win. So, I think that this game will be an interesting game to watch, but I think South Carolina will win by 2 touchdowns. I think by that time, the quarterback situation will be kind of settled out. They might still be playing, different quarterbacks in different series, but of course we got a reliable backfield with Brandon Wilds. So I think South Carolina will win this game here at Williams-Brice Stadium.
The Gamecocks are home for another week for a fun game against the Citadel.
Yeah, I don't think it's really worth much talking about this game. It's going to be a tune-up game for Clemson. Easy victory. It's just an FCS opponent. So I think South Carolina is just going to win by probably about 5 touchdowns. And that's when you'll see a lot of the backups play. And possibly, players that might be starting in the years to come.
And as always, our favorite game, Clemson.
South Carolina, I think, will win this game. And I'll tell you why. I don't think Clemson is as good as advertised. Deshaun Watson really is a great quarterback. There's no denying that. But it is known for him to have injury problems. So, we don't know what his health status will be at that point in the season. And quite honestly, Clemson doesn't have that many returning stars from last season. They're going to hurt on defense. I can assure you of that, because Vic Beasley's gone and their defensive line, the majority of them are gone. So I don't think they're going to have a lot of pressure on the front 7. So I think South Carolina will win this game, and I will say now they will win by 14 points.
Well, thanks for watching this 2015 football season preview. From all of us at Capital City Sports, I'm Kristen Whitaker.
And I'm Nick Jones.